Hello again, everybody. This is Robert Brighton, and welcome back to All That Glitters and your video course, Reading and Writing with Robert Brighton. Today, I would like to share with you a few books that I think you'll want to have on your shelf if you are an aspiring writer of anything, nonfiction or fiction, and particularly a couple of these for fiction, and all of them because they're just really interesting books. So I want to share with you what I have by my writing desk whenever I sit down to write. Well, the first one is the good old Merriam-Webster Collegiate Dictionary. This is the 11th edition, which I think is the most recent, but they're always updating it with new words, things like twerk, they added those. So, but all the old words are here too, the good words, and Merriam-Webster's a fine product, and the reason I like this one, because there are lots of dictionaries, the reason I like this one is because it's laid out nicely. It's got etymologies, which is the word history. It's got a few diagrams, pronunciation, definition, all the usual stuff you'd expect. But it's pretty comprehensive. It's a really good book. And the other reason I particularly like this and favor this is because this is what most editors will use as their reference. So if you send your manuscript off to an editor and for them to do a copy edit, they're going to use the Merriam-Webster for the most part as their standard. So being familiar with the Merriam-Webster is handy. It comes in handy for you to understand what your editor is saying when he or she comes back with comments based on something that's maybe non-standard in the dictionary. A lot of times, definitions, of course, are very important. If you use the wrong word, the dictionary can help you understand that. There are a couple words that I get sort of hung up on. I'll think of one here in a second that I was just looking up earlier. But anyway, as I'm thinking about that, the last point I'll make about the Merriam-Webster is the other thing editors and designers are rightly hung up about is where words break at the end of a line. When you're laying out a page and it's right and left justified, you have to break words with hyphens. And one of the features of the dictionary is it shows you exactly where the syllable breaks are in every word. So that's how your designer will figure out whether or not or where words should be broken. And you'll find bad breaks when you get your first version of a layout back. So that's what the dictionary is all about. Also, by the way, I should say, if you got 15 minutes to spare, it doesn't hurt just to open this to some random page and start reading. Start leafing through this. In 15 minutes, you can probably read at least, let's say, 20 definitions, etymologies, pronunciations, and how the words break syllabically. You could read about 20 words. Well, if you could find 15 minutes a day to do that in a year, you've read or you've learned, let's say, or learned more about 6,300 words. That's a lot of words. And most of our vocabulary is passive anyway. In other words, it's not something we trot out every minute, but it's good to know it because the richer your vocabulary is, the more choice you'll have when you are trying to express yourself. Okay, so that's the dictionary. These two books are related, and they're not typically books that writing instructors suggest. Writing instructors will suggest, like, Strunk and White's Element of Style and whatever. That's fine, but it's a little thin book, and I'm not one of those who think it's all that great, frankly, but that's neither here nor there. This book is a standard. This has been around forever. It's called A Hand List of Rhetorical Terms by Richard Lanham. Lanham. Rhetorical terms are figures of speech, and they all have names. So, for example, let's just take one. These are all great. Oh, I don't know. Let's pick a good one. How about this is good. Synecdoche. Let's find synecdoche. All right, here we are. Syncope, synecdoche. There we are. Okay, synecdoche, which is from the Greek, understanding one thing with another. Okay, so this is a substitution of the part for the whole, the genus for the species, or vice versa. So the famous example is all hands on deck. Well, it's obviously not people's hands, it's the sailors. But the word hand is used as a substitute. A part of the sailor is used as a substitute for the whole. Another one would be, I I saw 3 sails a-sailing. Well, the sails themselves aren't sailing; they're ships. The sails are a synecdoche for a ship. Anyway, all of these figures of speech, which we use all the time in our spoken and written language, have names. You don't necessarily have to know the names, although they're sort of fun names, but it is really helpful to know how English works, and this book will help you understand how it works. So that's a good one. This is a more modern version of this. I say modern because it's more recent, and it has exercises and things that you can go through on your own and challenge yourself as you learn about these different figures of speech. So I really recommend this one. This one's by, this is called Rhetorical Devices, a handbook and activities for students and writers, and doesn't have an author. Hopefully it's not AI. Anyway, it was published by Prestwick House in Clayton, Delaware, and I think it's pretty good. It's not as sort of academic as the great old favorite, but it is but it's a good book, and I'd recommend it. So familiarizing yourself with vocabulary, this is on your own time when you're not writing. Familiarizing yourself and studying vocabulary, studying words. Where do they come from? What do they mean? What are the nuances between them? Oh, I'll tell you what I was looking up. It just occurred to me. I was trying to find the difference. I've always been a little hazy on the difference between salutary and salubrious. Well, they're similar, but they do mean 2 different things. So I went to my Merriam-Webster. Turns out salubrious means something that's sort of generally healthful or health-giving or improving your physical or mental state. And salutary is a specific thing that does some good, like a salutary exercise that you took. So I don't know. Those words are not going to be used all that frequently. Because I write fiction that's set in the Gilded Age, I might pull one of those rabbits out of the hat from time to time. I'm just using it as an example of, if you're curious about words, and one of the things I think you'll be curious about is the nuances of meaning between words that look and sound very similar, and there are nuances, and it is good to know those nuances. The more precise you can be with your language, the less marks you get back from your editor, and the better you tell your story, or describe what it is you're describing, or sell what it is you're trying to sell. Now, I will say that the words salutary and salubrious are probably best avoided in most contexts these days because most people don't know what they mean. But if you get fascinated by words, at the very least, it is great to learn where these words came from and how their meanings differ only slightly, but meaningfully. And this is part of building up your muscle, your mental muscle. If you're going to be a writer or a speaker of anything, you are you have to know the source material, the raw material that you're going to use, and that's words. So, and words and how they're strung together in rhetorical devices. So, have a look at those books. They're great books. They're terrific references. But even more than reference, because you won't always know, where to go in a book like Rhetorical Devices. This is just something to read and do these exercises on your own. If you love language, you're going to love doing it. It's a lot of fun. So, thank you very much. I hope that's helpful. We'll be back very soon. Thank you.